morning.
Give me a second to get situated up here. Shouldn't take me too long. I want to tell you a little story today. Am I a little loud? Yeah. Got a big mouth. Sorry. I want to tell you a little story today about a time when God revealed to me the complexity and the wonder of His creation. It's not an impressive story by any stretch of the imagination. I know we have a lot of, people see visions and dream dreams and all that good stuff. We have books in the Bible about God revealing Himself to people. My story isn't really book-worthy. It's probably only about 15 minutes worthy, actually, maybe not even that. But I'm going to tell you what it is, so here we go. About 2 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago, I was in school. I was in college at Liberty University down in Lynchburg, and it was me and 6 other guys in a dorm room together. Each of us had like a little room separate where we all shared a common area, kind of like a living room, And we became good friends over this period of time, We didn't know each other really before that. I knew a couple of the guys for a little bit before that. But pretty much everybody else we met in school. And we became extremely, like I said, really good friends over a little bit of time. We did a lot of stuff together. We'd go on adventures, we'd watch movies. One of the things we did all the time, though, it seemed like you could always find us in our dorm room playing video games. This is not uncommon for, guys our age. We just spent a lot of time in our dorm room playing Xbox. So that's an important detail, because there's another detail that I'll share with you. The guy next door, in the dorm next to us, similar age, similar interests, he heard that we played video games all the time. So he came over and wanted to play video games with us too. Great, awesome, the more the merrier. And this guy brought over with him a video game controller. If you're not familiar with what those are, basically think like a TV remote, except you hold it with 2 hands, and you use it to play the character on your TV or whatever, So it's like a TV remote control, basically. He brought this controller with him, and it was unique because it was bright red, and it was super reflective. You could see like it was a mirror. It was reflective like a mirror, and you could see everything reflected in it. It was like a Christmas ball that you hang on your tree, bright red, just like that. So, details. This will become important here in a minute, bear with me. So, one morning I didn't decide, I had to go to class in the morning. I had to wake up. So I woke up earlier than everybody else to go to school. Nobody else was awake. I went out into our common area, and I sat down on the sofa, pretty much the same sofa I sat down on every morning before I got ready for class. Nothing special about it, but it had its back to the window, okay? And the sun had just come up not too long before that. And I was sitting on the sofa with my back to the window, and the sun came through the window, shined through the window, and among the, debris of our college dorm room, because it was a mess, there were like 7 guys in the same room. So it was a mess. But among the debris was this bright, shiny red Xbox controller that our friend from next door brought over. And the sun shined through the window onto this controller and reflected. You could see the sun perfectly reflected on the surface, reflected right back into my eye. It was kind of annoying, when the sun reflects into your eye. And so that moment struck me so profoundly. Big deal, right? So what? There's nothing special about that story, right? Nothing really at all. It's not a big deal. It's kind of a dumb story when you think about it. It's really, how long have I been up here? Like 3 minutes? I told you 15 minutes. It's really not even more 3 minutes. But what occurred to me in that moment was the complexity of creation and the layers of creation. And I'll show you why, because you're dying to know. So far, it's not a good story at all. So, let's go back in time, and I'll go back to my notes. Genesis chapter 1, verse 16. You don't have to turn with me. I'm not going to be here too long, but if you want to, that's great. Genesis chapter 1, verse 16. If I can find it, somewhere down here. God made the two great lights, the greater one to govern the day, and the lesser to govern the night. And he made the stars. Well, that's cool. Great. We know that. God made the stars, and God made everything. Duh, we get it. Big deal. Yes, God made all of those things. And so, a couple numbers I'm just going to throw out to you. Don't worry, these will be important here in a minute. But the sun, if you didn't know, is 92.96 million miles away from Earth. That's a pretty long distance. I did the math. If you figure a new car lasts, 300,000 miles, you get about 306 new car distances from the sun. So it'll take that many new cars to get to the sun. Well, that sun also, the light from the sun takes 8.3 minutes to reach the surface of the earth. You think the speed of light here on earth is instant. You flick the light switch, it's on, boom, right? Well, that's a huge distance for the light to have to travel across the vacuum of space. So it does. It goes 8.3 minutes through space. And that sun that God created so many years ago, we'll just say for the purpose of the story, a long, long time ago, because we could argue all day about when it was actually created, but that won't get us anywhere. So when he created this sun all that time ago, and all that distance of space, I just want you to keep that in mind, okay? Because I'm going to come back to it. Because that's an important detail. Let's fast forward a little bit. You're probably like, he's so going into the weeds with this story, but I'm getting to a point. Fast forward to, let's say, a random date and time, October 28, 1955. What's special about that? Nothing in particular, except that day was the day that Bill Gates was born. Bill Gates? Who's Bill Gates? A lot of you probably don't know who Bill Gates is. That's fine. I'll tell you who Bill Gates is. Bill Gates was the founder of Microsoft Corporation. And if you don't know what the Microsoft Corporation is, in the late 20th century, early 21st century, they were extremely important in bringing technology, bringing the internet, bringing computers into the home. For better or for worse, maybe you hate computers, it's fine. But for better or for worse, that's what he did. He was the founder of that company. Well, great, big deal. So what? What does this have to do with your story? I'm getting it. Give me a second. In 2005, Microsoft Corporation released the Xbox 360. This is a big deal for me, for guys like us, you know. And from its time created in 2005, courtesy of Microsoft, courtesy of Bill Gates, and from its time of creation, 2005 till 2014, it sold 84 million units. That's a lot of Xboxes. And one of those Xboxes just so happened to be in my dorm room 2 years ago. We played it all the time. The poor thing's probably worn out by now, but that's besides the point. The guy next door, who I was telling you about earlier, heard about it, right? He brought over his controller, his shiny red controller that I told you about. He brought it over so he could play Xbox with us. So courtesy of Bill Gates and all the men and women down at Microsoft and all their radically creative energy, I hope they recognize that all that creative energy came from God. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but they should, because it really does. But all of that energy went into making these Xboxes. One of them was in my room at the time. Awesome, great. Who cares? Big deal. Get to the point. Why do you keep mentioning all these dumb details nobody cares about? Well, let's fast forward again to probably, let's say, the early 1990s to mid-1990s. What's important about then? Some of you probably were maybe raising kids around then. Some of you maybe had your first grandkids around then. That's awesome. That's great. That was around the time I was born. And that was around the time that me and 6 other guys who didn't know each other at all were born. And the guy next door, remember I was telling you about him with the red Xbox controller? You're probably tired of hearing about him now. But he was born around that time too. None of us had anything to do with each other at all. We didn't know each other before this. We didn't hang out. We were just, 7, 8 people that just so happened to go to the same school. We went to the same school. We laughed. We cried. We played Xbox all the time. What does this matter? Why am I telling you this? This is all a part of this huge deal that I'm telling you about creation, about creativity, about the awesome creative power of God. Let me see here. I got my notes here. I'm going to catch up on these because I've been totally ignoring them for the most part. Colossians chapter 1, verse 16 through 17. For in him were created all things in heaven and on earth, the visible and the invisible, whether thrones or dominions, or principalities or powers. All things were created through him and for him. What is that? Yeah, we get it. God made everything. Big deal. He keeps saying that over and over again. That's the point I'm trying to get to. When I was sitting in that room 2-3 years ago, I still can't really remember how long ago it was, but that moment struck me as so profound because that God who made the sun and the moon and the stars X number of years ago, a long, long time ago, and that light that came from that sun traveled 92 point whatever million miles over the vacuum of space. It took 8.3 minutes for that to happen. When that sun traveled all that distance, all that time, to shine through the window behind me, to reflect on the controller that the guy next door brought over, I never met in my life before then. Courtesy of Microsoft and Bill Gates for the Xbox. Thank you, Microsoft. But when the light shined off that controller, and we all were just, some guys in the same room, brought together by a common thread of fate, whatever you want to call it, God's direction, whatever it was. When all of that came together, and you look at it over a chronological span, that's why that story is important to me. Because I saw all of that in that little moment. It wasn't like a vision that came to me. It wasn't like, this profound moment where I, saw this thing in my mind. But my mind started to comprehend the vastness of creation, the layers of creation, all the little threads that weave together from the sun and the sky, which is a big deal, to Bill Gates, which is a big deal, to us, which are kind of sort of big deals, I guess, really, all coming together in the same room, and that light shining off that controller that the guy next door brought over, that you're tired of saying. All of that came together to that one moment, and that's what I saw in that moment. It was so impressive to me. I'll read it again so you can understand. For in him were created all things in heaven and on earth. All things. The sun, the moon, stars, the Xbox in my dorm, us guys just hanging out every day. The guy next door, whatever hearing about it. The visible and the invisible. So maybe the invisible, now I'm going in the weeds, sorry. Maybe the invisible, maybe the things that brought us together. The creative energy that brought us together. Whether thrones or dominions or principalities or powers, all things were created through him and for him. That's what I saw. That's why I remember that story. Not because it's a great story, because it's not. It's not a great story. It's just an example of the awesome power of God, the awesome creativity of God, the way He's taken everything from nothing and made something, made the light to shine back off that controller into my eyes. I think it's kind of a big deal when you look at it like that. I hope you think it's a big deal. At least. I hope so. That's what I thought when I saw it. So, I don't really have any kind of profound advice to give you from that. All I want to say is that I hope when you're in your day-to-day life and you're just doing the mundane, doing what you got to do, everybody has to do stuff they don't even want to do. When you're in that day-to-day life, find time to see God in the mundane, because sometimes that's all we have to see in front of us visibly is the mundane. Because sometimes we're not going to see awesome things every day. We're going to see mundane things. You don't have to look far. You don't have to look hard. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to write, notes that you don't really use to give a talk in church to realize it. You just have to look just a little bit. It's not very, very far to see the awesome power of God, to see that our God is a big deal, to see that our creation is a big deal. And that's all I have for you.
Amen.